support and the healthy financial positions of households and businesses. The rise in COVID cases in recent weeks, along with the emergence of the Omicron variant, pose risks to the outlook. Notwithstanding the effects of the virus and supply constraints, FOMC participants continue to foresee rapid growth. As shown in our summary of economic projections, the median projection for real GDP growth stands at 5.5% this year and 4% next year. Amid improving labor market conditions and very strong demand for workers, the economy has been making rapid progress toward maximum employment. Job gains have been solid in recent months, averaging 378,000 per month over the last 3 months. The unemployment rate.
So I'm doing this live stream out of nowhere listening to Jerome Powell here because I started hearing some crazy stuff, but I'm going to react and talk about this after he gets done here.
In labor market differences in employment across groups, especially for workers at the lower end of the wage distribution,
can you guys hear the audio
as well as for African
on the
Americans and
stream? Let me know.
Hispanics. Labor force participation showed a welcome rise in November, but remains subdued, in part reflecting the aging of the population and retirements. In addition, some who otherwise would be seeking work report that they are out of the labor force because of factors related to the pandemic, including caregiving needs and ongoing concerns about the virus. At the same time, employers are having difficulties filling job openings, and wages are rising at their fastest pace in many years. How long the labor shortages will persist is unclear, particularly if additional waves of the virus occur. Looking ahead, FOMC participants project the labor market to continue to improve, with the median projection for the unemployment rate declining to 3.5% by the end of the year. Compared with the projections made in September, participants have revised their unemployment rate projections noticeably lower for this year and next. Supply and demand imbalances related to the pandemic and the reopening of the economy have continued to contribute to elevated levels of inflation. In particular, bottlenecks and supply constraints are limiting how quickly production can respond to higher demand in the near term. These problems have been larger and longer lasting than anticipated, exacerbated by waves of the virus. As a result, overall inflation is running well above our 2% longer run goal, and will likely continue to do so well into next year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
While the drivers of higher inflation have been predominantly connected to the dislocations caused by the pandemic, price increases have now spread to a broader range of goods and services. Wages have also risen briskly, but thus far, wage growth has not been a major contributor to the elevated levels of inflation. We are attentive to the risks that persistent real wage growth in excess of productivity could put to upward pressure on inflation. Like most forecasters, we continue to expect inflation to decline to levels closer to our 2% longer run goal by the end of next year. The median inflation projection of FOMC participants falls from 5.3% this year to 2.6% next year. This trajectory is notably higher than projected in September. We understand that high inflation imposes significant hardship, especially on those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. We are committed to our price stability goal.
Right.
We will use our tools both to support the economy and a strong labor market and to prevent higher inflation from becoming entrenched. We will be watching carefully to see whether the economy is evolving in line with expectations.
The
Fed's monetary policy actions have been guided by our mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. In support of these goals, the committee reaffirmed the 0 to 1/4% target range for the federal funds rate. We also updated our assessment of the progress the economy has made toward the criteria specified in our forward guidance for the federal funds rate. With inflation having exceeded 2% for some time, the committee expects it will be appropriate to maintain this target range until labor market conditions have reached levels consistent with the committee's assessments of maximum employment. All FOMC participants forecast that this remaining test will be met next year. The median projection for the appropriate level of the federal funds rate is 0.9% at the end of 2022, about a half percentage point higher than projected in September. Participants expect a gradual pace of policy firming, with the level of the federal funds rate generally near estimates of its longer-run level by the end of 2024. Of course, these projections do not represent a committee decision or plan, and no one knows with any certainty where the economy will be a year or more from now.
So I just got to point this out. Why is Thinkorswim's charts better than the Federal Reserve charts? I don't understand this. These charts are barbaric.
Purchases for Treasury securities and $10 billion for agency mortgage-backed securities. If the economy evolves broadly as expected, similar reductions in the pace of net asset purchases will likely be appropriate each month, implying that increases in our securities holdings would cease by mid-March, a few months sooner than we anticipated in early November. We are phasing out our purchases more rapidly because with elevated inflation pressures and a rapidly strengthening labor market, the economy no longer needs increasing amounts of policy support. In addition, a quicker conclusion of our asset purchases will better position policy to address the full range of plausible economic outcomes. We remain prepared to adjust the pace of purchases if warranted by changes in the economic outlook. And even after our balance sheet stops expanding, our holdings of securities will continue to foster accommodative financial conditions. To conclude, we understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can to complete the recovery in employment and achieve our price stability
You couldn't even
goals.
say that without choking
Thank
on
you.
it.
I look forward to your questions.
Mr. Chair, we'll go to Rachel from the Washington Post.
Thank you very much, Michelle, and thank you, Chair Powell, for taking our questions. The latest FOMC materials say that the FOMC thinks it will be appropriate to keep rates near zero until labor market conditions reach levels consistent with maximum employment, and there are also 3 rate hikes penciled in the projections for next year. In order to set up those hikes, what will maximum employment have to look like? When will you know that that threshold has been met, and how will that be communicated? Thank you.
So maximum employment, if you look at our statement of longer run goals and monetary policy strategy, maximum employment is something that we look at a broad range of indicators. And those would include, of course, things like the unemployment rate, the labor force participation rate, job openings, wages, flows in and out of the labor force and various parts of the labor force.
Economics lesson from you. So I'm just, this is a little unexpected, to say the least, that they are going to raise rates, or not raise rates, don't keep rates at zero still for a while tapering. So they're pulling money out of the stock market. They're telling us that. Jerome Powell just said it. They've increased their efforts to pull the money out of the stock market. And then we've seen the stock market get real wild here lately. Big difference in volatility in this big dip and this dip we're currently having than back here. So the stock market is going to, I guess, I don't know. This type of monetary policy is unheard of. So I don't know. To be honest with you, at some point they can't. I mean, they're not putting any more money in. I'm just kind of shocked that I sit here and listen to Jerome Powell say some of the stuff he just said. Basically, I heard a lot of we messed up. Our projections were wrong. We had to redo a lot of our projections because of how off they were from actual inflation. They're admitting we have high inflation. They're admitting it's a problem. They're admitting that they've got to taper, but they're not going to raise the interest rates right away. So you can see the SPY is already rebounding. I mean, we're seeing rebounds across everything. Cryptos, gold, silver from this morning. And it's just not looking like. I guess the train is going to continue. We're gonna continue on the. Unless this is one big bull trap today. But you go and listen to a lot of different economists throughout the day reacting to what Jerome Powell just said and what they're announcing. There's going to be a lot of confusion. You're going to see a lot of people trying to explain what's going on. And wow. So I guess they're not going to raise rates until next year, which we're almost to next year, but you think this has already been placed in One Life? Oh, I don't know, man. The charts are telling me different. I don't believe nothing he just said. He even said, Jerome Powell said word for word, of course in a year nobody can know what's going to happen with the economy. And then he continues to say that this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Well, if nobody knows, then how are you making your predictions? What are you basing them off of? Because looking at their charts, it looks like an old Atari video game. I don't know how the Federal Reserve can literally make money out of thin air, make U.S. currency out of thin air, but they can't afford better charts than Robinhood. Like, really? Really? What's going on? What do you mean? Higher inflation does not hurt the wealthy's pockets. Higher inflation helps the wealthy. The wealthy know how to use higher inflation to continue to suck the purchasing power out of the dollar. That's why wealthy people own real estate. They own gold and silver. They own cash flowing assets. They don't own cash. The most richest people don't have cash. I mean, the S&P 500 is the 5 companies, but just because 5 companies weight the index fund does not mean that they are the whole weight of the whole market. Those 5 companies cannot replace every single job and every single, which he said as well, the job growth is not looking as good as they thought and all of that, but they're not, like, those 5 companies can't keep up with 360 billion people's demand. You know, even though they're big, Google doesn't have chicken farms. So Google's not going to be sending you eggs to your door. I mean, eventually they could, who knows? But at this moment, if all of the rest of the companies go bankrupt, the whole rest of the U.S. is in trouble. If 5 companies survive, that's even a worse situation if it's those most powerful 5 companies. That's, you know, this is corporate communism we're talking about heading to. So that's a bad that's a bad scenario for the stock market and just everybody in general. There's not a good way out of this. The only way that the market corrects, the economy corrects, is by it correcting. That's why it's called a market correction. And if we do not have a market correction because the feds keep putting it off and off and off with their little shenanigans they're playing, at some point there will be some type of correction. And the longer, as I've been saying, the longer they keep putting it off, the harder that correction is going to be. Here, One Life, you wanna hop on the stream? We can debate about this. I don't want to debate you through chat. Get on Discord. We'll debate about this Fed rate stuff right now. You ain't doing anything. Is it working? Let's see if my headphone's working. Hold on, guys. I'm gonna get one life on here. Let's have an actual, real debate about this Federal Reserve nonsense. Well, it's gonna take me a second anyway to get you set up, so just bear with me, guys. I'm gonna be loading in one life, one chance. He's going to debate with me about what these federal things are about here. These federal, you know. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, you don't have Discord. All right, let me pull up Skype. Do I have Skype still? Skype's too old school, man. We'll have an impromptu debate. I don't think I have Skype anymore, man. Maybe I do. Yeah, I know Skype sucks. That's why One Life's on there. Go ahead, man. Take your time, man. I gotta load you in here. This is an impromptu debate. So this was not planned. I wasn't even planning on live streaming and reacting to this until I started seeing some of the news. Like a couple of you, Fat Boy Drizzy, you hit me up. When you hit me up on Instagram, yeah, it was you. I think it was like you said something like "Thank you, Jerome Powell," I guess. So I wasn't paying attention because I usually like to wait and not even listen to the nonsense that comes out of their mouth. But I figured I would just hop in here and react to it. It was a little bit different than what I was expecting to come out. I was expecting them to start announcing rate hikes right away. They're tapering and keeping interest rates at 0. Whew. No telling what this is going to do. This is crazy. Just crazy, crazy stuff. Okay. All right, One Life's on here now. Let's get them pulled up here. Oh, we might not need that second audio output capture. Let's see. Yeah. He's being slow. ABBV swing just won't stop. Let's see. Let me check out ABBV. I know you've been mentioning it. I just haven't been able to check it. Let's see what's going on with this. Oh yeah, man. Nice. This thing has been climbing very nicely, hitting a new high here multiple times in a row. Nice job, Orlando. Killing it. Killing it, killing it, killing it. While we're waiting on One Life, I'm just gonna let this run some more. Where did it go? Why ain't it working? There it is. And then when he gets ready, we'll hop on here and we'll discuss this and talk about it.
Delta. So coming in on top of that, again, it's very difficult to say what the economic effects would be. I do think wave upon wave, people are learning to live with it. vaccinated, so people who get the new variant, it affects them much less than it tends to affect in the aggregate people who are not vaccinated. So the more people get vaccinated, the less the economic effect. It doesn't mean it won't have an economic effect. Delta had an effect of slowing down hiring, and it actually it had an effect on global supply chains, and that sort of that hurt the process of the global supply chains getting worked out. So it can have an economic effect. I just think at this point we don't know much. We'll know a whole lot more in 3 weeks, and we'll know more than that in 6 weeks.
But if I could follow up, you're clearly from a sort of from a risk standpoint comfortable putting away one of your tools pretty soon, which sort of implies that whatever Omicron brings, you're comfortable the economy can handle it without quantitative easing.
Yes. I think if you look at the state of the economy and the strength of demand, the strength of just overall demand, the strength of demand for labor, look at inflation, look at wages. I think moving forward the end of our taper by a few months is really an appropriate thing to do, and I think really Omicron doesn't really have much to do with that.
Thank you.
Let's go to Gina at the New York Times.
Hey, Chair Powell. Thanks for taking our questions. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what prompted your recent pivot toward greater wariness around inflation.
Sure. So I guess I would go back and, it's been a continual process, really. Inflation really popped up right in the late spring last year, and we had a view. It was very, very widely held in the forecasting community that this would be temporary. It was quite narrow. A limited number of factors were causing it, and there was a decent amount of evidence to support that view that it would be temporary or transitory, as we said. Certainly, we had 5 months of declining month-on-month, monthly readings of inflation, but we didn't see much in the way of progress on labor supply or on other supply side issues. Then in September, I'd say after Labor Day, it started to become clear that this was both larger in its effect on inflation and more persistent. And of course, I said so on many occasions. And one of the consequences of that is that we moved the taper forward. And it's a much faster taper than had been planned. So we've been adapting. I've been saying we're adapting our policy.
I hear you.
Let me know if you guys can hear One Life loud and clear.
Check 1, 2. You're gonna check yourself.
Hold on, I think, let me fix this. I think we're having one little issue. All right, talk now. Whoops. All right, try now.
Check 1, check 2.
All right, there we go. We got One Life on the audio, and give me just a second,
I
guys.
see Orlando's laughing already, so that's good.
Yeah, man, it's probably because that toboggan you got on looked like Where's Waldo's trying to break in a Walgreens.
Perfect.
There we go. Where are you at?
My dog freaking out in the background.
What's that?
My dog's freaking out in the background downstairs.
Oh, that's all right. You know, Sam's always barking. Where? Oh, here we go.
Oh, they can't see me, they said.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on, guys. I'm working on getting them in here right now. Like I said, this was impromptu. I appreciate everybody being patient.
I'm not computer literate either, so that's why I use Skype.
Yeah. Let's see. Why are you not getting on here? Oh, okay. There we go. All right. One Life is on here. I'm not going to fix him up all pretty or anything. We know he's on Skype. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
So, all right, man. You just heard. You just.
Is the cocaine and hooker still going to where we want it? Are we going to 500 or
What, on the
are we
spot?
still waiting for the crash?
I'm definitely still waiting for the crash. I mean, you just heard Jerome Powell. They didn't. And even as I was walking back in here, I was hearing this where he was just now answering that girl's question, and he said there was a lot of people who agreed that inflation was only transitory, and you know, a lot of people got that wrong. Oh, really? Really? Who's been saying that for the entire time, that this was not going to be transitory? So here we are at that point where I made that prediction and I was accurate. So why do you think I'm going to be wrong about anything else?
Where are we paying all this extra money at?
Say what?
Besides, like rent and stuff and housing. Houses are more expensive, but I mean, I've been pretty much paying the same like my whole life for gasoline.
It's like $3 and what's it? Where you at right now? $3?
It's $3.35, but it always kind of stays in like that range. I don't see it. I mean, back in 2008, I think I paid up to like $5 a gallon for like a good 6 months or something.
Yeah, for 6 months you did that, but you just said your whole life that you paid. It's pretty much been the same.
I mean, and you know how my stance is. I don't put too much thought into what all they are saying because I don't care to live my life in fear that my dollar is worthless and so on, because I just feel like every year of my life I'm paying pretty much the same for the basic same goods. And I look at it as if one company or product gets outrageous expensive, no one will buy it, and a competitor will come in and I can get the same equal product or similar product.
That's not
Right.
true. That's not true anymore. People buy Apple products left and right, and they pay the extra price. They've always.
I mean, also Apple is kind of like, I mean, you can use that as one of the top leaders, you know, so you see that shit everywhere, so everyone's going to buy it. It's a premier product. But I could still, if I don't want to have a smart or an iPhone, I can go get another smartphone for half as much or a quarter of the price. You know, there's options out there. It's just that, you know, I guess in this sense, you could say that Apple is more of a luxury good and kind of a status symbol. But like, if I can't afford an iPhone, or if I want to be able to at least have walking around with internet, I can have a cheaper phone.
So do you think there's people out there who can't afford an iPhone, but they bought one anyway, that they're paying for credit?
That'd be kind of a slice of life. There's people like that, you know. I mean, I was the same way, being, you know, in my early 20s, and you know, if I want something or if I'm subjected through, you know, pop culture or something as it being cool or something, then if I wanted it, I bought it.
Sure, but
Now
if
that
there's
I'm older, I could care less.
okay, but here's the thing: you keep saying I. Not everybody is going to be like you. They're not in the same financial situations as you, and what you will do or what you have done may probably most likely is irrelevant to anybody else's situation that they're in right now. So while you may have not felt the effects of everything, other people are feeling the effects. And it's not a fear of the dollar crashing and living in fear. It's the idea that we are supposed to have trust in this currency, and yet the people who are controlling the currency are lying blatantly to us on CNBC News and telling us, oh, my bad, inflation wasn't transitory. We screwed up. We're going to try to do something about it. You know, this is, do you think...
To cut you off real quick, do you think like normal people really put much of a thought process into it.
No, and that's a problem. That's why I do what I do, is to educate more people to pay attention, because the fact that people stopped paying attention to who they were electing into offices, all the laws that were passed, is the reason that we are here now. We are not starting into a power vacuum. The power vacuum has been going on for 60, 70 years. We're coming to the final tipping point, and if you look at every historical cycle of an empire and a currency, we are at that tipping point. Every single example in history has failed at this timeline. So what makes us different? Why do you have the optimism to think that America is any different than any other example in history that we have? Why is America the gold magical thing that can print money forever and ever and keep this charade going?
I mean, because they have. I mean, I think you're getting a little carried away with saying it's the tipping point. I mean, I think you got to wait and actually see that stuff kind of happening.
It's happening. What more do you need to see?
The dollar has been losing value for 30 or 40 years. Well, I'm a little bit older than that, and I mean, life has been pretty normal that whole period of time.
Because that's not because of the U.S. currency or the government policies. The reason why your life has continued to get better is because you went from having a stick with a fire on the end of it in the background of there for your lighting to a nice little lamp with a nice lampshade. Technology advances. Comfort comes from technology advancing. You would be drinking water out of a lake right now instead of that beer or Red Bull that you're drinking.
I know,
right?
But that's kind of here or there. You know.
Exactly. That's my point. What you're talking about and defending right now is the luxury of technology. This is not the luxury of monetary policy or government reach. That's what I'm talking about. What you're talking about is completely irrelevant to what I'm talking about. Thank you. I'm glad you admitted that. Now, that's what I'm going to ask you again. Why do you think America can keep doing this? Because because they have done that, so is every other example that I said, and they eventually failed. So what makes U.S. different? At this point today, what makes us different than all those other examples? Huh?
We're a global leader. We're not a third world country. You know, we're not like a developing nation.
A global leader of what?
A specialized nation.
A global leader of what? We're the most highest debted nation in the world. We owe more money than any other country.
Yeah. You gotta have debt.
30 trillion?
Yeah.
30 trillion?
I mean, to me, obviously you are well studied with this, but where is the whole end of the chaos coming from? You have a very end of the world theory about all this stuff.
It's not an end of the world theory.
Will go on. You know, I will not be surprised if the SPY goes to 500. The stock market only goes up for the last 130 years. So you could say that we're going to have decline in GDP or a decline in dollar and decline in this and that. When Wendy's or McDonald's is hiring people at $16 an hour and they can't get people to help, I think that's to work there. I think that's a good thing. People are fed up and not willing to take these mediocre jobs, even if they're paying more. So
okay. Let me stop you there.
Unemployment is horrible or is bad.
Let me stop you there. Because you're going into something.
People that are out there looking for work or want people to work. Those either succeed or they will fall. Either or doesn't matter to me because somebody else will come out.
That's not true because the government has bailed out companies that were supposed to fail many times.
You're talking about big giant companies. I'm talking about mediocre, just mom and pop stores, middle of the road, have maybe 50 employees. I'm not thinking about all these big companies. I could care less about those companies.
That's okay, but this is where I wanted to
involved in them.
But this is where I wanted to go back to what you're saying. The minimum wage or whatever jobs are paying $16 an hour and people don't want to work them. This problem did not start this year or last year. That problem started when the government put minimum wage in the first place because that law, what it's supposed to do, everybody thinks is good.
Well, now
What
you're
it
going
actually
to the-
does,
you're
wait,
going
wait,
to
wait,
the
wait, wait,
Peter Schiff argument.
wait, wait, wait,
We're
wait, wait.
talking
What it
about-
actually does, this is not a Peter Schiff argument. This is,
Yeah, that's
this
the
is,
big Peter Schiff theory about there shouldn't be no minimum wage. Each state's minimum wage is different. There's not going to be like a nationalized minimum wage. And people that are taking minimum
there
wage
is. The
jobs, I
the
mean,
Federal Reserve,
that's what they want to work.
they made the federal minimum wage. That's the nationalized minimum wage. Now, does the rest of the private
Every
sector
state's different,
have to
though.
follow that?
What's your minimum
No.
wage in Wisconsin compared to Michigan?
Listen. Okay, so let me get back to what I was trying to say. Minimum wage was put in as what it was supposed to do, but what it actually does is take people out of the marketplace. If you're not competing with any value to offer, then you shouldn't get paid if you have no value to offer. So to have competition, to
Are you
get
really worried about
advancement.
minimum wage workers as though that's the ground basis of financial recovery?
No, I'm not talking about. You're the one who brought up minimum wage in the first place. What I'm saying is,
low-level skill sets.
what I'm saying
I
is,
worry about a company thriving or dying because of a minimum wage worker. My whole thing about is if you see these minimum wage jobs and they can't fill employees, well, it sucks to be them. They're going to have to reinvent themselves, or they're going to have to do technical advances.
but
where
here's
they can, keep their margins
Sure.
at the same level. If they
sure,
can't,
that's all
well, on
fine
them.
and good. That's all
People
fine
not
and good.
taking those jobs is a good thing.
Sure, that's fine and good. That's not what that's what I'm debating you about right now. We're not debating about minimum wage and jobs. What I'm saying is the problem that you're talking about was caused by the government. Minimum wage was the shortage of jobs, the whole lockdown. They locked down the economy.
I mean, minimum wage has been around forever. I remember when I was my first minimum wage job.
You're still not getting the point. I know, but you're still not getting the point of what I'm making. You're focusing on the word minimum wage. What I'm trying to get you to realize is that the government put that in there. That was their fault that caused all these other problems in the market. They put a number and told every business, you can pay everybody this amount. This is the lowest you can pay them. So they put a price on everybody's skills. That you cannot do. That is not competition. You are not getting any labor competition. How is that competition? If that's not competition at all. If somebody says the numbers are the same across the board,
and are for people that do not have skill sets or skill levels.
Yes, and there was more jobs that existed before the minimum wage law.
Motor company
One
for a
life.
minimum wage job unless I'm a janitor.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question.
That's not a skill set.
Do you
There's a
remember?
big difference
Let
between
me ask you a
skill set
question.
and competition and minimum wage. Minimum
No, there's
wage
no
is
no
a
difference.
buffer
How?
that
Whoa,
supplements people that have no
Hold
skill
on,
set.
hold on. Skill set has everything to do with competition. You can't say that.
Exactly. So you're kind of arguing your own point of minimum wage. The government put that in there as like a safety net for people that do not have skills or might have disabilities or might be, outsourced from, their economic environment that they live in.
Okay.
The people that actually have skill set, they are not worried about the minimum wage job because they know they will thrive better than that. And there's plenty of programs where those people can get financial aid and they can get any kind of help along the way to improve them not being in the minimum wage.
We're getting way off track.
Does that mean anything to me?
Exactly. We're getting way off track. It's not the idea of the jobs of how much people are getting paid that I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about the problems that we are addressing on this stream right now are not from everything that they're saying it's from. This goes back. This is just one policy and one example of why faith has been lost in the U.S. government, hence faith being lost in the U.S. currency. This is one example.
I think those are two different things, though, if you separate them.
What do you mean? The law exists because of the government.
Faith and the currency and then faith in the U.S. government. I think the currency and the government are two different things.
How could you possibly think that when it's a fiat currency that they literally create out of thin air? I mean, the Federal Reserve does it, but let's not pretend.
Anything through life, one time we thought that sticks was a form of currency, or pieces of rock like gold. We thought it was a currency.
It
We
still is
use
it's
cattle as currency.
no.
It's always changing.
Wait. You're conflating currency and money right now. Currency and value.
It's just like saying
A cow is not a currency.
That the fiat currency is worthless and is nothing because it's not backed to anything. Well, you should watch what you're wishing for, because what is Bitcoin backed by?
A whole new advancement in technology. That's what cryptos are backed by. You're jumping topics here, not staying with me on the same topic. We can't have 6 debates at once. The whole point I'm trying to make is all of these issues that have come about, that we're coming into for the stock market, for the financial system, for the economy, is problems that's been building up since the Federal Reserve was started in 1918. Before that, there was no depression. It happened after the Federal Reserve came in. Okay, so all of this bad economic policy has led up to this point, and it's questionable whether it's bad or if it's designed. There's a lot of facts and stuff out there to suggest it is by design, population design, and all of that stuff. But either way, any case, we don't even have to go to conspiracy theories. We look at the chart, it shows it. The US dollar has been going down. It costs way more dollars now, true, than it does gold now to buy a house than it did in 1970. So your gold is more valuable now than your purchasing power of your US dollar. And this trend is continuing, and you have the head of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, telling you that your US dollar is going to continue to go down in price, which is pushing the stock market up. Right? That's happening right now after he just said that. We agree on that. If they keep the money train going, the stock market will keep going up. All I'm saying is at some point,
the stocks would be worth, take more buying power to buy stocks in the future.
Exactly, because stocks are assets in a company. The US dollar you're putting into them is not a value. It's a currency. You're just transferring.
When hasn't it been that way?
Before,
My whole life
what do you
has been
mean?
this way.
Yeah, your whole life, but one life, you're 50
Your
years
whole life
old.
has been the same way.
Yeah, and I'm only 30 years old. I'm not going to think I pretend to know everything from all of mankind throughout history and just act like U.S. in this last 30 years is how the world works. How we think the world works and how it actually works, how we were born and raised to think it works, is not the same thing. You know, if that was the case, if we have, for example, here's a perfect example. Do you believe that we have true freedom over our property?
That sounds like a trick question. What do you?
It's not a trick question. What do you mean?
Do I have freedom
There's
over
no
my property?
Yeah.
What
Do
what
you own your property free and clear?
Do I own my property?
Yeah.
Free and clear?
Yeah.
No. Why would I do that?
Okay, so you got a loan on it. Either way, but do you own your property?
Technically, yes.
Technically, yes. But if you go build a fence, you got to go ask your local government's permission and pay a fee.
I mean, that's with anything, though. There's always taxes.
Exactly. Exactly. So there's no true freedom. There's no true free market. You're on the same page now. There is no, this whole illusion that you have in your head. It's not an argument.
That have different variables. There's definitely a lot of different variables that are involved with that.
The only variable I'm trying to get you to realize is this distinct difference between
paying taxes, though.
What?
Paying taxes are a good thing.
According to who?
To me.
To you?
Yeah, that helps. Local taxes.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that's a different thing than federal taxes.
You know, paying all the taxes that keeps the street lights on, keeps the community looking good, community programs, police department, fire department, beautification, keep your property up. Can't hear now? I see you take your thing out.
Oh yeah, I can hear you. You're good.
Okay. I have no problem with paying taxes. I don't think it's a big deal. You know,
so
people, they know
let me get
and the rules where they're not paying taxes, but I'll never live that kind of lifestyle. I'll never be there where I can afford to pay somebody to put my money in certain places. But paying taxes in general, I don't think is a bad thing. It helps, helps out people that are less fortunate. It helps out your community.
Yeah, if it's locally, that's where everybody would agree.
I mean, it kind of, also look at it when you're paying taxes to the federal government. I think I've always had a tax return. So I'm still getting a bucket full of cash, when I'm,
But if
January, February, you always hear people be like, hey, I'm going to go file my taxes because I'm going to get a tax return.
One life, real quick, though, let me ask you a
You're loading
question.
huh?
Let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Why would you need a tax return if you weren't paying taxes in the first place?
What? What are you talking about?
You wouldn't get a tax return if you wasn't paying taxes. You're just getting the money back.
Getting a portion of it back.
Exactly.
Obviously, they take some of it.
But why would you do, like you said, you're fine with it because you get some money back.
Yeah.
You would get to keep all your money if you didn't get taxes and choose where you want to put it.
Yeah. I mean, you know where I'm going to put my money? In the wrong places. So it's probably good that they get to keep it for a year, and they can use that money to subsidize other programs for, people that are less fortunate or programs. But, I'm going to get my money back. If I get that full check the whole time, as in, majority of Americans, what are they going to do? They're going to blow the money. People are consumers. There's not too many people, besides these people that are on the stream, that are interested in finance and accumulating, wealth. Majority of people are out there buying goods and services because it makes them happy for 15 minutes and then they go buy something else.
Exactly, because they've been brainwashed their entire lives to do that.
Well, people have been brainwashed forever through ads and magazines and TV shows and whatever, pop culture, thinking such and such is, cool or whatever, or, it keeps up with the Joneses, whatever it may be.
So you agree that people have been brainwashed. You agree that the federal...
I don't know if it's necessary to the point of brainwash where they're doing things that are stupid. I think it's more of a sleep mentality where people in general are asleep through their lives and they're comfortable, they think they need to have, a wife, 2.5 kids, a picket fence, shit like that. That's where I think it's just where people are not knowing that they're brainwashed, but they are. It's just like reality of life is to be a consumer, be a worker, and that's it. And that's why, you mass people always look at, artists differently or people that think out of the box differently because they don't see why these people would want to live differently than the so-called, lifestyle of, the people that live next door.
So if everybody has that mentality and they're voting in the same people who keep on keeping that illusion alive while they're getting rich. Nancy Pelosi just came out and said today that she thinks that spouses should be able to buy stocks. She thinks it's okay what she did with her insider buying stuff. The people in power are corrupt. When you admit that there is brainwashing,
they're just using their status of what they can get away with. That's all. You know what, Ben?
Corrupt.
I think if we were in the same place, we'd be doing the same shit because we can get away with it.
That depends. Human beings are
insider knowledge of insider buying, or if we knew such and such was going to go down and we could be ahead of the curve and do it, we would. Unfortunately, that's just, it goes to human
survival of the fittest.
I guess.
Survival of the fittest,
which
right?
Is a bad thing, but
survival of the fittest, one of the laws of nature.
Yeah, you can't. It's like my old lady. She probably shouldn't talk to her too much about on here, but she went into a management position, and I kind of was against it. Why would you want to do this? Because everybody has their own agenda. Like I was saying in chat. They have their own, when they're there at the workplace, not everybody wants to get ahead and move forward in this business cycle. Some people just want to get theirs and go home. So why would you want to take on that extra workload and stress to try to motivate people that you don't really know what their motives are? And that's kind of what big government or, mass people. It's hard to get everybody on board to change the way of thinking. It takes so much time, it takes years and years.
It's impossible. It's never been done. There's never been one time in history where one nation of people all think the same. That would be a perfect utopian. It doesn't exist.
It's a blessing and a curse. Some things are good to have different opinions on it and think about. And then there should be also, you know, I mean, you can even look at like cannabis. You know, why did it take cannabis this long to become, you know, recreational legalized in states? It's not even federal legalized.
Because of
But
bad policy.
where majority of people know now, there's, you know, not, you know, any harm in the plant whatsoever than if people were thinking back in the 1930s. Everything takes forever to change.
Nothing has changed. If the law of if you agree with the law of nature of survival of the fittest, nothing has changed but everything around you. You're still just a human being. Just because you have pictures on the wall, a guitar, and a lamp behind you, and that nice rug, you know, you're the same type of human being that was fighting off dinosaurs, or working for Hitler as a Nazi, or killing babies as for sacrifices to the sun gods as Aztecs. Like, you share that same DNA in some sort. Everybody does. So it's impossible to even think that there would be some type of utopia where everybody could agree. It's just not possible. And that's the problem we're having, is we're having people in power right now who disagree with most of the world, especially our own country, and don't care about what everybody else thinks. They're going to do what they want to do. And what they're trying to do, which is clear as day on the charts, and they've even came out and live streamed it on YouTube, the World Econ Forum, the Great Reset, and said, we are going to do away with currency. By 2030, you will own nothing and you will be happy. It's not conspiracy theory.
That's not going to happen.
So you don't think the President Xi of China, along with the heads of Google, Facebook, Goldman Sachs, Joe Biden, the President of the United States, you don't think none of them, all of them together, can't make this happen?
Correct.
All the most powerful people in the world who control the currencies, the central banks, you don't think they can make that happen?
Correct.
What would stop them?
Why would they?
What would stop them? What do you mean, why would they? They told us why.
Come on, man. Have you looked out your back door? You see these, you know, look at for one thing, America. One thing,
So you see once again,
a little bit.
See, once again, you're going back to America's too big to fall.
The U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan a few months ago, you know, after being there for like 10 years. What happened? What are they?
We left a bunch of weapons.
Bad people. They hit the Taliban, I guess. They went in and they took over the country, right? And the people just gave up all their rights. Now, any kind of red-blooded American, you think they're going to have somebody come into their backyard and take away their rights and just walk and say, here, go ahead?
Do you think the government's that stupid that they would do it that way? You've already admitted they're brainwashed people. Why wouldn't they just brainwash those red-blooded Americans into doing what they want, like they have the whole entire time? You just admitted they brainwash people. Now you're saying
people will die for their freedoms than give up their stuff and say that they're going to be happy.
So,
you know, if you're giving me a time frame of 10 years, good luck. These politicians that have been, some of them have been in, you know, politics for, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years.
Another problem.
It has changed nothing. So you think
Exactly.
in 10 years that we're not going to worry about money and I'm not going to have any property and I'm going to be happy?
No, that's not what I said. That's what they said.
Exactly, and I disagree with that. That's not going to happen. Now, tell me the reason why you think it will happen.
I don't know.
Maybe we can find a middle.
I don't know if it's going to happen for sure, because I think crypto adoption is the only answer. But fighting a war, I mean, if they control the media, if they wanted to, they could just spread a virus. They do. They've been doing funding for viruses that are whatever it's called, the gain of function research. They admitted to it. The FDA, Fauci, they all admitted to it. If they've got those viruses in a lab, they could leak them. You don't think they would do that for survival of the fittest, for their gain, for their agendas?
I don't know. Maybe not. I'm not sure. But I also look at it this way: is like people like to talk a big talk about, you know, governments, when government heads or whatever. But do people really want to get into a war? You know, those fat. Never mind. Those wealthy people over on this part of the country or this over here. Do they really want to start a war?
They don't
look
think.
look at the United States military might. Come on.
Well, considering one of
so
the
much money in government money and
one life, consider
technology to fight wars so we can go around and have our way with people the rest of the world. So they take our American currency and they pay their debt in American currency.
No, they
because
don't.
we have the tanks, we have the bombs, we have the power.
no, we don't.
That's what America does. They go around and they want to say it's,
We owe everybody else 30 trillion. How is that possible? What you're even saying right now? We're the highest debted nation. What you're saying is not even in reality.
But who?
What do you
Break it down
mean?
to which countries do we owe?
China, Japan,
And
England.
what do these other countries owe us? Have you looked at that?
Not more than 30 trillion, because we are the highest debted nation in the world right
When
now.
America's funding billions of dollars to
Another
the Middle
problem.
East, to
Yeah. Another
Jerusalem, or
another
the
reason
Jews, or
for the
whatever's
economic
not
system
even,
collapse.
whatever the country is, I can't even think right now. And they're paying money over to Turkey, and they're paying money over in Africa, and they're helping
Yeah.
out people in Mexico, people
Yeah.
in South America.
Yeah. Spending a
That's
lot of
what-
money that
that's what
doesn't
America
exist.
To get
Yeah.
all that money and have those people, we can take their resources and do what we want.
So you think we can infinitely do this?
Why not?
Well, I told you why not.
All those who's gonna stop them? Besides China.
Nature, the laws of supply and demand, and survival of the fittest.
I mean, there's people on you go in the middle of Africa. There's people that are drinking water out of a friggin' puddle and stuff.
Yeah. What's your point with that?
Well, the point is that over here, everybody would want to come here and have this water over here.
Well, exactly. That's
It's out of Flint, Michigan.
yeah, exactly. But that's exactly why they want to do the Great Reset. They want the whole world to be on an equal playing
don't.
field.
No, they don't. You're gonna tell me that millionaires and billionaires will be like, yeah, go ahead, I don't need any money?
No, they're going to have all the money. They're going to have all the land. They're going to have all the resources. All of us are not going to own
It's already
anything.
kind of balanced that way already.
Exactly.
They
We're
already have
almost
this property. They already have the property that's on the lake, on the coast.
Exactly.
The best
Exactly.
property in San Francisco, the best property in London.
Exactly. And that's what my whole
And that's
point.
been going on for probably 150 years.
It's been going on since the beginning of humankind, where a small group of people try to take over all the resources of the planet. This is nothing new, and like I've said, it's failed every single time it's gotten to this point. And like you said, this has been happening in America, because that's my whole point of this has been happening. That's why we're coming to this point where the economy's going to collapse, the dollar's going to collapse. You've named out more problems that's wrong with America and the way they're spending in their policies than I have in this debate. That's my stance. You're arguing for me.
You can choose what you think is works to your side of the argument. I'm just looking at it as this is nothing new.
I'm not picking any.
You're saying that the economy is going to collapse. Well, people are obviously going to step in and try to change that, because wealthy people are going to want to hold on to their wealth.
Well, they're not going to lose it if the economy collapses. They're not in the U.S. currency. They're not in the stock market. They've got real estate and they've got gold and silver.
You can even look at like a
Cryptos.
smaller people that are not millions and billionaires, but are like $1,000 or $100,000
What?
You think they're gonna the guys that has the tire shop is gonna want to give up his business and not fight to the bitter end for his economic future for his family, just like you said, of the laws of human nature of being a hunter-gatherer?
I have no doubt that people are going to fight back. My argument's not that people is going to fight back. My argument has been and still is, this is what is going on. Whether or not people will fight back, that we'll find out, but everything has been happening leading up to this point. And the time cycles match, everything matches. And as I was just saying, you've agreed
maybe
with...
we are kind of similar, thinking the same idea. Our time frame might be off. But you were kind of the more, I'm assuming from what it sounds like, that you're thinking that this stuff is going to happen, overnight, where I'm thinking I'll be dead before this happens.
No, that's totally opposite. I've been saying that this has been happening for a long time, and we're coming to the tipping point, the end of that time. you have went through many examples through this debate of
I
what
mean,
has happened over that time that has led to
tipping point
this.
for a long time now, and life has been the same.
For
It's
40,
been tipping. It's been tipping. It's been tipping.
now earlier you said life changes. You said everything changes. Does it change or does it not change?
Yeah,
Which one?
it takes a long time for it to change. It hasn't been tipping for the last 2 years.
Yeah, I know it's been tipping.
It's been tipping for the last 100 years.
What did I say at the beginning of this? 1918, when right after the Federal Reserve was put in. That's 100 years.
Well, now you're telling me that 10 years from now that we're not going to have any property and stuff, and I'll still be alive, and
No,
obviously.
that's not what I'm telling you. That's not what I'm telling you. That's what the people of the heads of the World Econ Forum, Klaus Schwab, President Xi, Joe Biden, all of these corporate big people we're talking about who are weighted in the stock market, like you were talking about this morning.
That's the problem. They brainwash you to believe that. You're a subject to your own, influences. They already brainwash you. I'm here trying to get you not to be brainwashed.
I'm not.
But it's not going to happen.
I'm
Life
not.
is going to be fine. You're still going to be able to buy bread. You're still going to be able to go out, to a Red Robin or whatever.
That's not true. That's not true. All the restaurants were locked down for a year last year. Are they open now? Yeah, but the government showed they could shut them down.
Here in Michigan, that's why I tell you to come to Detroit. I ate outside in the middle of winter.
So I'm
My
not
local restaurant.
saying that I'm brainwashed by the World Econ Forum is not
They
accurate.
brainwashed you.
I'm not brainwashed by telling you what they're saying. I'm telling you.
Okay, then let's nip it in the bud. Let's get it on record. You denounce what the Economic Forum is putting out.
Yeah, no, I didn't say I didn't believe it. I also didn't say I did believe it. You're the one who's putting those words in my mouth. What I'm saying is you're denying.
Here today in front of the thousands of Framework Fortune community that Mr. McNutt has denounced that this is going to happen.
I can't denounce something that's going to happen in the future. How do I know what's going to happen in the future? You're asking me to do something that's impossible.
I think you're leading into the politician. You're going to be a young politician, I think. You're moving into political. You are going to start your own political party. I don't know what your agenda is yet, though. But like I've said, everyone who has a platform has an agenda. And we need to hear it today.
What, you guys know my agenda. I'm trying to build a blockchain. Well, I'm not really capable of doing that, but Ruben is trying to build a blockchain for the Framework Fortune community and a coin, so we can have a decentralized community outside of the regular U.S. economy. So if somebody in Africa who's drinking out of a puddle of water wants to get out of their economy that's holding them down, their physical economy, they can then go to Framework Fortune and be able to start making a digital currency without being in that economy. They will be in a good economy instead of the one that they are born in. Because now that we have ways to build digital economies, we don't have to be chained down to where we live at. And that's what the internet has brought to human beings, is the most valuable thing. And very few of us actually use it to further what we want to do. Do I want to get rich? Sure. Do I want to be famous? Fuck no. I hate doing this. I don't like being on camera and all that stuff. But what I'm trying to do is just educate people, get them on at least a similar page. And if we can all have a community where we don't have to rely on the government or other things like that, outside sources, then everybody can thrive. Right?
I think the most important thing that you're doing there is that you are giving an opinion on financial literacy for people that are new to finances, which I think is a great and commendable thing that you are doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I had these abilities of learning tools, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And
Most important thing.
That's
now,
what
things, everybody has an opinion like buttholes, My opinion is definitely different from yours to Trader to Daniel B to Orlando to whoever. Everybody has their own circumstances, and they have to maneuver it to the best of their abilities.
Exactly. That's what I advocate for, is individualism and true freedom, not having to pay the government $100 to put a fence in a piece of property that you're supposed to own. Things like that. Like things that we've took for granted and let happen to our society across the last 100 years because we pretty much went dumb. I mean, one of the trends in 2016 was kids eating Tide Pods. So, you know, the biggest problem in the world right now is lack of education, especially of these systems and how they work. People have savings accounts right now thinking their money is safe in a savings account because it has the word savings in it. Me and you both know your money's in a savings account, you're losing negative 4.5% right now. You're not gaining any interest.
You got to have cash on hand to disperse it when it's time. The problem with the word savings account, which you kind of brought up, is it's not really a savings account because there is no interest being gained on it.
Well, you're losing with inflation at 6.5 now.
Well, that's part of life, man.
But I don't want it to be.
That's why people don't. That's why pretty much, you know, a lot of people. It's probably borderline majority of, you know, working class people are living paycheck to paycheck, or, you know, high in debt through credit cards. You know, so people are consumers. They spend it quicker than they bring it in.
Exactly, and that's because of lack of
inflation. Obviously, that doesn't help.
No, and that's the problems. That's the problems where everything has started with is lack of education across entire communities and populations. Like we wouldn't have voted in all these.
And then, can you point to where there needs to be more, you know, funding as far as tax dollars to education?
We shouldn't have any.
If you don't want to pay taxes, you should have the taxes, you know, help to go pay those, you know, school teachers and school property and, you know.
Let me ask you a question. Do you know how much your local government spends on public schooling?
Well, I'm sure they get a federal or from a state grant. The state gets X amount of dollars and they divvy it up between the cities, and the richer the community is, the better the schooling is.
Right.
Now,
that's a problem. As
the federal government on, you know, to the state, I have no idea if that even happens. I don't know if it's just state dollars that are, you know, collected, and then it's
there's federal stuff too.
Program for public schools.
We don't need to get that deep into it, but the point I'm just trying to make is the state governments, they're the ones who have paid for those schools, so they're responsible for how the schooling has went. But once again, we voted them in and continue to allow these same people to run things, and things didn't get better. So you even nailed it right on the head when you said it. The money goes to the rich communities, so they have the nicer schools, where the poor areas don't get that much money. Now, what if the government wasn't involved at all, and it was privatized or even communitized? Now, what if there was a school on every corner like McDonald's?
Well, I'm sure that'd be too many, because I mean, like, I can't speak
for. But if there's too many, if there's too many, too much supply, what does that mean?
Well, schools get shut down. That's what I was going to bring up, because Detroit's like a huge city. It's gigantic. It's probably one of the biggest cities in America.
Sure.
But only like 10% of it is used. And at one time there was like you were kind of mentioning, schools on every corner. Well, a lot of those places are, you know, destroyed. They're all torn down now.
Yeah, but that's not because of the
population left.
Well, yeah, but not because of just the schools. I mean, there's a whole lot of reasons the population left Detroit. What I'm saying specifically is, if there's too many supply of schools, then the prices of schooling would be cheaper.
Well, now you're kind of, I don't know if you're kind of pushing more like a university-wise. You know,
everything.
That's just a whole other dirty secret with universities and, you know, paying for college education. I believe that, you know, further education is very important. The problem is that if you want to go to college or you want to go to a university and you're getting student loans, well, that student loan debt is you can't get rid of. It's
Yeah,
kinda
no,
like,
that's
it's
another.
the same thing as having IRS debt. You're going to pay it for the rest of your life, and that's where the problem is. And that
Exactly.
universities can charge more and more over the years because they know that that debt is going to get paid.
By who? The government.
Well, no, the government is not paying for the people that are taking out the loans. Now, obviously, you probably heard that the government is trying, or people want the government to get rid of that student debt.
The student loans are government student loans. There's very few outside of government student loans. People who don't use government student loans usually go to school on scholarships, or they're rich enough to pay out of pocket. So those government loans only exist out of a necessity for people who can't afford it. But the reason those were put in actually, or that policy decision actually made it more expensive, because once again, the same way that you put a price on labor across the market with minimum wage, you're doing the same thing with schools and colleges and saying, okay, you have to we'll pay no matter what the price is, because we're the government. The taxpayers will pay it back to us. We'll make sure everybody gets an education. Well, when that happens, that's why you see college books at $500, a used college book, because who's paying for it? It's not coming directly out of your pocket, so you don't feel it until the back end through sales tax and federal tax and all of that. So we're overpaying in taxes. My problem's not paying taxes. My problem is overpaying taxes. And every little thing we do is taxed now. I mean, you can't buy or sell anything without getting taxed. You can't move
what's
without
the state
tax.
tax in Wisconsin? Like
It's 5. The sales tax is 5%, but the income tax is upwards 10-15%, I believe.
Depends on your income bracket. Yeah, because our sales tax is 6%. It was 4%. But yeah, the whole thing with the government-backed loans with school debt, and like my niece has got like $60,000 in debt, but she's got like a really horrible degree, and she's going to get her doctorate degree, but it's still, she's not going to make shit with it because it's a horrible degree. So like a passion degree, I guess. Passion project.
Yeah, but you got to pay.
People get screw themselves.
Yeah, but that's my point. Like, why does that cost $60,000? That shouldn't cost $60,000 for one person to get a piece of.
Over time, the schools can charge more because you can't default on that debt. She's going to be paying it for the rest of her life.
Yeah, she'll owe the government. Oh, well, one life. I got to get going, buddy. My hold on a second here. Well, I can't hear you, One Life. My headphones died, but, we kind of wrapped it up there anyway. I appreciate you being on, having this live stream with me. Guys, we'll be back about an hour and a half for the crypto update on the crypto channel. And if you haven't yet, go check out frameworkfortune.com. It's free signups. One Life is on there. H&H Trader, everybody's on there. And soon, hopefully, we'll get Daniel B's little sweet boy up here, his little self, to join in with the debates. Appreciate everybody joining us as always. Stay safe out there. Until next time.